Good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Milsey. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Milsey Brews, the show where I brew a version 1.0 deck list of the Commander edition in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. I'd appreciate it. The Discord's been popping. I'd love for you to join in, links down below. But today, we're covering what I expect to be the most popular version of the new Spirit Dragon for the Abzan, Betor, Kin to All. A 5-mana, 5/7 Spirit Dragon with flying. This is the beginning of our end step. If we have creatures that total toughness 10 or greater, we're going to draw a card. If it's 20 or greater, we untap all of our creatures. If it's 40 or greater, each of our opponents lose half their life rounded up. This is what I expect to be, to some degree, a very popular commander, and it's one of the commanders I've been really messing around with on my own. I played this version of this list in a Homedown Smackdown episode a week or so ago. I've done a bit more editing it on my own. I feel like I'm almost there, but this is the deck as it sat when I the last time I did it for the live stream, and kind of where I'll have it sit for now. If Betor ends up being a deck that I play more often, I'll do some more updates on my personal version. But big toughness matters. We're going to put a lot of creatures down with big toughness, and then we're going to find a way to pay off that losing life rounded up halfway if we can with a combo or two. Thank you so much for the channel members for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing all of our videos just a little bit earlier for $1 a month, check it out down below. There's a lot of way to accomplish having big toughness matters cards, and I think this is the section of the deck that could change the most over time as you find the key creatures for the right roles. Because I think it's all about maximizing the toughness for the mana cost. Like, you really want to find ways to do all of that. I think there's creatures that can immediately change. Obviously, I don't think this is the perfect lineup that I'm going to show off, but I was just trying to amass some creatures I think are really well worth their value. Ancient Gold Dragon makes a ton of sense. 7 mana for 10 toughness. That whenever it hits, you roll a d20 and make that many 1/1 dragons. Again, could be a way to immediately get there, right, on that turn. Angel of Destiny, I love it. Not only is it a 2/6 flyer with double strike, but has a pretty fun ability. Whenever a creature we control hits an opponent, we and that player each gain that much life. And at the beginning of our end step, if we have at least 15 more life than our starting life total, each player at attack this game turn loses the game. That's just a great ability. It's going to really turn this into a threat that our opponents have to deal with, and our life total is probably going to keep itself up high as we get into attack. I threw the other Betor in here. I don't think it's as much of a slam dunk as I originally thought it was, but I think it's a solid dragon, and if we have other things that are gaining life, we can make creatures bigger. Dromoka makes a ton of sense. Flying lifelink or 5/7 opponents can't cast spells during our turn. Anytime we can get that restriction is great to protect us, especially if we can get to 40 that turn, we can guarantee, right, that we can have the ability to go off. Elish Norn makes a ton of sense to me. +2/+2 to our creatures, -2/-2 to our opponent's creatures, going to hose those token decks a little bit, and just immediately make all of our creatures better for the cost. You know, Betor immediately becomes a 7/9 instead of a 5/7, getting so much closer, right, to that 40 number. Fakun Greenshell, I think, makes a ton of sense. Whenever it or another creature with toughness greater than their power enters, we get to look at the top card. If it's a land, you throw it in tapped. Otherwise, you put it in your hand. And when you get 10 or more lands, all of our creatures get +2/+2. Again, just complimenting us for wanting to go tall specifically, but also wide if we need to, making things better. And this is going to be triggered a lot if we can get Greenshell down early. Oketra is going to make us a 4/4 zombie anytime we cast a creature spell. Again, those 4/4s are going to stack up pretty quickly. If you think about it, just one creature spell effectively means Oketra is getting us 10 toughness, right? Going to allow us to get to that 40 a lot quicker. Icarus Shadiki brings us 7 toughness, but also gains us life when our creatures hit players equal to their toughness. This is really useful in a second when we talk about making sure that our creatures hit from their toughness rather than their power. But either way, just gaining us life is a huge deal, because at the end of the day, we're going to need to protect ourselves, right, from our opponents. Indomitable Ancients, 4 mana for 10 toughness. We love it. A big creature. It doesn't have much utility other than its big butt, and we don't mind that at all. The Necrobloom was a card I went back and forth on, but I think if you can get it down early, those plants and zombies are going to stack up that you make on landfall. Otherwise, it's just 4 mana for 7 toughness. and it's not a bad card in its own right, allowing us to get lands back from our graveyard if need be. Tree of Perdition and Redemption, both 4 mana for 13 toughness, and they both have very interesting abilities. The Perdition can swap an opponent's life total with its toughness. Almost always, if you have Betor in this out and you're able to resolve that ability, it's going to mean the drain that turn, allowing the opponent that you swapped its toughness with, right, to be down to 6 life and in a lot of trouble. And then Tree of Redemption can swap our life total with its toughness. Very interesting ability. I don't see myself using it as often, but I think 4 mana for 13 toughness is well worth it in our deck. Trostani is a 2/5 that says whenever another creature comes in, you gain life equal to its toughness. Again, just allowing us to keep our life total high, right? And we can populate tokens if we have them. Failings is a 13 toughness for 5 mana, still very worth it, right? And will help us get to that number. And then I think something like Zopendrel makes a ton of sense. One, because its toughness is higher than its power, so it already fits the deck. But at the start of our combat, we get to double the power and toughness of each of our creatures until end of turn, which is exactly going to make sense for Betor's ability, because that buff will last until after Betor's ability triggers, allowing us to potentially double our whole board and get to that 40 even quicker. But I think where we take the deck from being just about toughness to making it better is these abilities that let our creatures assign combat damage equal to their toughness rather than their power. We have a lot of them, and most of them are on creatures that are already very good. You know, the Lumberknots of 4 mana for 4 toughness, but again, that power makes a big difference because then, right, Betor's coming out and dealing 7 instead of 5. Baldin's probably one of the best ones we have in the deck because it has that ability during our turn. But then whenever it attacks, up to 100 target creatures each get +0/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in our hand. I mean, at minimum, think about it, just even 4 cards in our hand. If we have 5 creatures, that's 20 toughness extra on the board and could be even easier to get Betor towards its ability. Arbor Adherence, that new mana dork from the commander deck, adding for a mana of any one color. It's already a 2/4, so it's got that extra high toughness for us, but we can get X mana of any one color, right? This is the highest toughness among creatures we control. Very often that's going to be 10 or so, you know, some of the creatures we have, so it'll be very useful on the right turns. Bedrock Tortoise, Doran, the new Felithar from the commander deck, all giving our creatures the ability to assign their combat damage with toughness. Doran will actually force everyone to do it, whereas Felithar and Bedrock are only for ours. Bedrock gives all of our creatures hexproof on our turn, which is pretty helpful. Felithar gives us the option to sacrifice creatures to draw cards. So, there's some utility here, and instead of just having this ability, even though something like Doran, just gives us that ability. But we don't mind, because that's 5 toughness for 3 mana, 5 toughness for 4 mana here. Very good rates for stacking up those numbers. I think the last big thing is remembering that when our opponents lose life, we can take advantage of that. I spent a lot of the money from the deck in these 3 cards because these are 3 very good cards. The first is Bloodletter of Aclazotz. This is a 2-card combo with Betor. As long as you have 40 toughness, this will automatically knock out all your opponents. It says if an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that much life instead. Obviously, Betor's ability is half their life rounded up. Of course, that means always going to be exact. Twice is going to be more than enough to knock them out. But if we can't always fly Bloodletter, we can also find some pretty good ways to take advantage of that. Bloodthirsty Conqueror, if our opponent was lose life, we'd gain that much life. I mean, it ain't going to take long. I mean, it's going to take, one Betor trigger to gain, at least 60 life to keep us in a good spot. Same thing with Exquisite Blood. Whenever our opponent loses life, we gain that much life. Again, just one of these on the battlefield of one Betor trigger can really, honestly, keep us in a game for a long time. And keep us safe, so if somebody wipes the board, right, we can recommit for the next one. Truthfully, I think these are the kind of cards you really want to see, especially Bloodletter. And there's a couple ways in the deck we have to find them. But, truthfully, I think this is one of those decks where people are going to see Aclazotz once and they're going to know what's coming. But I think the thing that I was trying to figure out with my own version of the deck, and as we go into testing and how I've been testing it personally, that I've been trying to figure out, is how do I maximize the toughness per creature, and how do I protect myself? The deck already has a little bit of protection in my own version. I added a couple more. But how do we take advantage of this toughness per cost ratio? And not only just do I want the highest toughness creature for the lowest mana value possible, but how do you find that cross-section of creatures that have great toughness for a great cost that also pack killer abilities? That's, I think, the thing with Betor that's going to take the mastering is figuring out what creatures make the most sense. I thought about something like Wound Reflection. Each time, it being each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they've lost this turn. Now, my understanding with Wound Reflection is it should be able to combo with Betor, and it should be able to double all of their life. But the way that I read it is it would have to force your, well, no, it doesn't have to. Your opponents wouldn't have to have lost life for this to go off. It's going to go off no matter what. And that means that it should be able to double up with Betor. Now that I'm reading it, it makes more sense. I think the reason I took it out for Exquisite Blood and Conqueror is I think the life gain just makes it more salvageable in more games. Like in the worlds where we're not at 40 with Betor, but we're attacking, I still feel like the Conqueror and the Exquisite Blood add to a ton of life gain for us, 20, 25 a turn. And I think Wound Reflection makes a ton of sense now that I'm thinking it through in my head. It does work the way I thought it did. And that's the important part sometimes of trying cards out, is that you understand how they work. So it probably comes back in. As far as Pontiff and Colfinor go, these were creatures that I was looking at when I first threw the list together. I'm not high on them anymore, but I think, again, it comes down to finding the creatures you want to play that fit your mold of having higher toughness than power for good cost, but also have good abilities. Like I said, if I keep playing Betor, we'll do another video updating Betor and kind of what I've come to. I'm really still, mining through the options there and just trying to figure out what that looks like for me. And if I, get any insight on that, I will let y'all know. But let's do what we love to do on the channel most and get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest in our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to show off our best plays, but it's to get in some game scenarios and kind of understand what we're looking for. Here we got a 4-lander with Doran, Tree of Perdition, and Avenger of Zendikar. I like Avenger of Zendikar. It comes in, makes some plants. You can grow the plants, hopefully, every turn. Great way to farm some toughness. We're 1 land off Betor, but I don't think we really care. We got a nice turn 3, turn 4 play. And so much of this deck is like getting ourselves right down and getting ourselves going. Here, I think Doran makes complete sense on 3. Tree of Perdition makes complete sense on 4. We drew the Swamp, so we're in perfect shape for Betor here on 5. So right now we're at 18 toughness. Betor would make it 25, so we're automatically untapping and drawing a card. Ikra's a great draw. Ashaya, right? Star with stars, number of lands you could draw. Again, I like it. Good value for low things. I think it's just Betor here. Now, the fun part is we could technically get Betor to go off this turn, right? Because Tree of Perdition came in last turn. So if nobody has any removal, we tap Tree of Perdition to swap it with somebody's life. Go to end step. We've got, 52 toughness then if somebody was at 40. Chunk your other opponents down. The one at 13 goes down to 6. We've basically done our job, right? And, now we're just in great shape as we come to our next turn. I mean, this is still an 040 unless somebody removed it. So Doran's going to have it hit as a 40, right? Same thing with, the rest of them, they're going to hit even harder. I mean, if it's still an 040 and nobody has any response, nobody's got it off the board, or Chroma's will, if nobody can respond to it, just ends the game, right? Tree of Perdition would be a 40 with lifelink, double strike, indestructible. I mean, it's just going to knock somebody out, gain us a ton more life. The other two should be able to knock the other person out since they have protection from all colors. And that's just the game. That's just a scenario where we see Tree of Perdition, it survives, and we have something to follow it up with. I think a lot of time what's going to happen is you're going to get Tree of Perdition down, you're going to use its ability once, you're going to have the table once with Betor, and we're probably just going to get wiped off the face of the earth. I mean, our board's just going to get wrecked. But that's okay, because truthfully, you only need it to go off once. If you think about it, going off the second time isn't super great, because you're only really taking 10 life from everybody at that point. But that's why the hope that we can get in combat and make the rest of it happen. So I think this makes the most sense. In fact, what probably makes the most sense is Voice of Victory first, so that nobody can cast spells on a turn, and then a Chroma's Will, and just end the game straight out, right, with that. And I think that's more than enough. Again, a little magical Christmas landy there, but it's good to see what we can do in a scenario where we have the time and space. Here we're keeping a 1/2/3 lander, Soul Ring, Tear Asunder for some removal. There's Balden. Wall of Roots is a card that I didn't originally have in my first version of this list, and I brought it in when I realized what it actually does. So, you put a -1 counter on it, Data Green. You can only do it once per turn, but it effectively acts as a mana dork for you, and it comes in with a solid amount of right of Toughness on it. It stinks you can only do it once per turn, but I think the really nice thing is that it can be a great piece to get down sometimes if we need it. If our opponent has a black source, I think it's just Exotic Orchard into Betor. If they don't have a black source, 1, 2, 3. I could get. I can't get down the unnatural growth till next turn. So let's say they do have a black source. 3. 5 for Betor. We draw at the end of turn. Come to our next turn. Now we could get unnatural growth down. Now we would be at 12, so that we're at 12 now. So that'd be 24 toughness. Bar the Door is really fun, giving all of our creatures +0, +4 till end turn. It could be a good way to get to 40, right? But I think it's just Belden. Now we can have Betor attack if we want as a 7 in the air. It's going to untap itself because of speed. Oh no, we're only at 19. So it's not going to untap itself quite yet, but that's okay. Now as we come back to our turn 5, 6 mana, I'm at 19. This right now would get me to, that's +12, so that would get me to 31. So if I could get a creature and Bar the Door out, we could be able to potentially get there. Felithar would only be... Felithar would only be 21, and then +16 would be 37, so it's not there. But it could sacrifice a creature to put a counter everything. We could, or a permanent, we could sacrifice something like Soul Ring if we wanted to. We would get there this turn. We would just greatly hurt ourselves next turn in getting there. If I go the unnatural growth route, which could set us up well for next turn, we just actually, well, hold on. Bolden attacks this turn. Everybody's getting 7 right now, which would be enough on its own if we were to do that. Because it's just cards in hand, so it might make sense to just... I don't have the double black for the Conqueror. I don't have enough mana for Avenger of Zendikar. None of them have trample, but I guess you could risk commander damage at this point with Betor, right? It'd be 14 in the air plus the X from our hand, which would be 6. If we play the unnatural growth. I mean, that's a risk of commander damage in the air, right, on somebody or very close to it. If I play Felithar, I can still keep up Bar the Door. Oh, no, well, not if I play the growth, right? Because I don't want to get rid of the roots. And like I said, if I sacrifice this, that's 4, 12, 20, 26, and then it would be 6 in my hand. 6, 12, 18, 24. So that would actually be it. That would be enough this turn. The problem is you lose so much of your mana source here. My question is it worth it to get it this turn? I guess you still have the big attacks, right? You still have 14 Betor in the air, 14 Bolden on the ground. You're probably taking some things out in the process. We're at 22. Bar the Door puts us at 38 plus that. So I think that makes more sense. Have Felithar come in, play the Bar the Door. Bolden grows everybody by 5. So we have it this turn. Remember, they untap. And as we come to this turn, we're the 1 mana off open draw. But remember, we can use Wall of Roots to do it, right? So it just gets the -1 counters. We're 4, 11, 18, 21, 27 doubled, right? And then for Bolden. So we're good to go there. It just goes to show you that sometimes it just takes that right sequencing of seeing the right things at the right time. Here we're seeing the Wall of Roots and that Arbor Adherent, 4 lands and an Arcane Signet. I like this one. There's Felithar. That makes the hand even better as we work our way into our things. I think the answer is, say, you could make the argument of Wall of Roots, but I think I'd rather get the Arbor Adherent down, only because it can start being a really good resource for us. Because like this turn, if we go Felithar, now this is tapping for 5. It's only a mana of any 1 color, though, so I can't slam Betor down because I only have 1, 2 colors, right? But I could get Wall of Roots down. I could go deep into like Quarter Calling for 3. That doesn't really make much sense. So I guess we get the roots down, right? Come back to our turn here. Now I could get Betor down for 5. That leaves me here for 7 and 8 into a Quarter Calling for 5. I'm trying to think of what 5 can get me off a Quarter Calling. I'm at 21 right now with Toughness. 5 can't go get me Zopendrill. Oh, but I have 6. I have 6 because of the Wallaroots, which could get me Balden, but Balden has to attack. Zopendrill's 7. My thought is like, what could we get? Oh, we could Convoke, I guess. We don't need them to attack, right? And Betor untaps them. So yeah, we could technically go get anything we want to. It's 7 just on... It'd be 6 just on mana alone, but we could tap other creatures, right, to get the Convoke. Remember, they untap because of Betor. So I actually think something like Zopendrill makes the most sense, right? And now that's 13, 18, 23, 27 doubled is 40. They all untap. We still get to draw, right? And then now we've got the Flare. Hopefully protect the board. And again, just do this again. Now we could start attacking, right? Attack with the ones that we can attack with. We are still doing them based upon their toughness because of Felithar. The defenders can attack. So we're still in good shape. And I think we just still, we got it there just for the core calling at the right time. That's why I really have always liked core calling. I know it's a tutor, but it's a tutor that at least requires you to spend the mana at the right time. And if you've already gone wide, I think you should be able to be rewarded for going wide. But let's do one more playtest. We're looking at a 4-lander with Soaring, the Lumberknot, and a Natural Growth. So we got a really nice start. And we see... we see the gold dragon, which isn't a bad way to do that. Let's put the Lumberknot down, I think. Gets us started. 5 for Betor. That's going to draw us a card on our end step. 6 here, so we're just 1 off the dragon. Wave of Reckoning is a really fun one-sided board wipe. Each creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. It's going to take out a lot of other creatures. Could I have changed green? I don't have the 3rd green, so maybe it makes sense to like Kadama's Reach this turn. Since we're already kind of not doing this anyway, when we can put like a Plains in our hand. We got 4 mana left. Could look into something like Tower Defense, I guess, if we wanted to, but otherwise we just draw and move on to the next one. Now here we've got the mana for the Gold Dragon. We have 8 mana. This takes us to 21. It just can't attack this turn. Ashaya is a 6/6 right now. That would take us to 17, plus the tower defense would be 32, so that's not the line. I'm trying to think of what we could do to like get the most toughness on board this turn. So I've got 8 mana, right? That's 5. We go to 14 and 8, it's 22, plus tower defense is only 32. I like the idea of Ashaya because it turns these into lands. Actually, it's even bigger because Ashaya would grow for the creatures too, so she'd be a 9/9. 9 plus 16 is... 9 plus 7 is 16, plus 4 is 20. Tower defense would only be 35, but it could get us closer. I guess I could just do the Gold Dragon this turn. Draw and keep going. And then this turn, Ashaya. Ashaya's now a 10. So 10, 20, 27, 31. And now Bar the Door or Tower Defense do it. We could also go... Yeah, we could do that, and I think that makes most sense. This attacks, makes a bunch of 1/1s, hopefully, and I think we're just off to the races. You have Wave of Reckoning, which would potentially take out Ashaya if we were to play it, but I think it still could be worth it to really hurt a board state, right? Considering so much of our other creatures just have their toughness higher than their power, and I think we're just in great shape leveraging the board in our case. Like I said, if I get some updates for my Betor list, I will let you guys know. It's something I've been kind of working on in the background. Urani's kind of taken a lot of my focus as far as new Tarkir decks go, and then Tival, the Commander Tival. But Betor's been the 3rd one I've been messing around with, just trying to see if I can make it work. I love the idea of it. I really like Bald, and I really like Angel of Destiny. I like the idea of Bloodletter and some of our other creatures. So if you want to see an update to that, let me know down in the comment section below, and I will catch you on the next one.